Well, if you've been around the Pursuit for a while, you probably know a little bit of our story. It's on our web page under the history part. We talk about it from time to time. It's been a pretty amazing 5.5 years. People ask me to describe it, and I just can't. I just honestly cannot explain what it has been like. What you probably don't know, most of you don't know, kind of what shaped me as a leader. Because you, those of you who've been around, you saw the Idaho Paul kind of thing. We moved up here, but God just did so much in me over the years to prepare me for what He's having me do. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I've seen some bad examples of church leadership. At least those are the ones that the media portrays, right? We've seen people in my spot lead in an ungodly way, and it's made it hard for maybe you coming in, especially if maybe church isn't something you're normally a part of, to come into a place and trust a leader. I just want to give you a glimpse into today. I guess what God did in me, what God is calling me to. I've always said that I wanted to pastor like Paul. No, that's not pastor like me. That's the Apostle Paul. Okay, I've always wanted to have his heart. I wanted to be the type of leader that he was. I believe in him. We see a godly leader, his heart for those he leads, his willingness to lay himself down. And we're going to look today at the characteristics of a godly leader by looking at a guy who learned from Paul. Okay, somebody who saw him lead. What I'm describing you today, it's a little bit intimidating, I guess, to come up and confess to all of you what I believe I should be, recognizing that I am not there yet. I'm not what I'm supposed to be at. I haven't arrived. I'm not satisfied with where I am in my walk with Christ, nor as a pastor. I'm in process, and I hope that you are too, that you recognize that. I do want to say, those of you who are in here, and I know there are some of you who are already in leadership at a church or in another ministry, or you desire to be in leadership at some point. My hope is that today you would understand what it is that God calls us to be as leaders. Like I said, we can't just follow the examples that we see. Not all of them are biblical. If you someday want to work at the Pursuit, as we continue to expand and more and more need for staff, just to let you know, you should pay really close attention today, because this is what we would expect from you if you were to come on staff at the Pursuit. And for all of you in here who say, man, I have no desire to lead, okay, and I understand that there are some of you probably who are in that situation, don't sleep. Here's what I would like you to do. I'd like you to pay attention, because I think in this today you can understand what type of leader you should follow. Who should you be able to get behind? Turn your Bibles to Colossians chapter 4. If you don't have a Bible and want to look on, you could slip your hand up and an usher will bring one to you. It's page 158 of the New Testament, so go to the end and work your way back. Paul's wrapping up Colossians and describing his core, the core of people that he has around him that are allowing him to do ministry. And we talked 2 weeks ago, we talked about the core and kind of described that. And I know that many of you were challenged to be core. If you're here, to be core for somebody. If you weren't here, get the podcast or grab the CD, get caught up from 2 weeks ago. And then last week, we did something that we've only done a few different times at the Pursuit. We actually showed a sermon on video from a guy named Craig Groeschel. And it was one of those days, I won't ask for a show of hands, but I know there are probably 50, 60 of you in here that were not here last Sunday. And I'll just tell you, it dealt with the issue of money, okay, and our heart toward money. And it was one of those defining days, so much so that I'm actually toying with the idea. I haven't really bounced it off everybody yet, but we're probably going to do an encore of that service, music and all, exactly the same thing that we did, probably extended music because we will have a little more time. But on some Friday night, we're gonna figure it out. But if you weren't here last week, I would encourage you, maybe as a preface to that, go online to our news page and you can click on the link to watch that video online. But if you would like to, we're thinking about doing that because we just did some stuff around the message that it was just unique, and I keep hearing from people what a difference last week made in their lives. So today we're getting back into Colossians, and Paul's talking about this guy Epaphras. Okay, describing this man Epaphras, which we know a little bit about him. Actually, Colossians 1:7, we understand from it that he actually started the Colossian church. Paul says in verse 7, "Just as you learned it from Epaphras, our beloved fellow bondservant, who was a faithful servant of Christ on our behalf." So it sounds like, and what most people believe, is that Paul led Epaphras to Christ, and Paul continued on the journey, and Epaphras, underneath Paul's leadership, goes to Colossae and starts this church. Most people believe he actually started the church at Hierapolis and Laodicea also, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you could see, as Paul just describes him there, Paul's heart for him. Paul loves this guy Epaphras, and he says he's serving on our behalf. They couldn't be there. Paul couldn't be there. He never made it to Colossae, but he was able to go and start this church. And probably at this point, as Paul's writing, probably still their pastor, probably still the pastor of the church. But he goes to, as their pastor, is concerned about some of the stuff that he sees, some of the false teaching they're trying to lead people away from Christ. And so he actually goes to Paul, travels to Paul, and kind of gives him an update on where they are and says, "Look, I need your help. I need your help. I need you to help me pastor the church that I'm pastoring. It's kind of over my head a little bit. I need your help." And Paul, in response to Epaphras, actually writes the letter that we are studying, that we're about to finish studying as a church. And I just have to do a timeout and just point out again, because the small guy, I'm a fan of, the guy who's faithful in the role that God calls him to. And here's this pastor of a small church who we don't know much about, but because of his heart, you got to catch this, because of his heart for his congregation, the congregation he led, we have the book of Colossians as scripture. I mean, it was because of his heart he went to Paul. God used Epaphras' heart to get him to go to Paul and share with Paul, so Paul would write, and God led this through his Spirit, led Paul to write the book of Colossians. I say it a lot. Doesn't matter how big your ministry is. What matters is, are you faithful in what God has called you to do? And God includes the little guys and stories of the little guys in the Bible over and over again. I love that. Philemon 1:23, we also find out that he's a fellow prisoner with Paul. Now, some think that's figurative, that he's just there and kind of staying with Paul. Doubtful, because he doesn't call the other people that are doing that. I think literally he was in prison along with Paul for proclaiming Christ. Not sure how that transpired, but Paul's in prison. Maybe, Epaphras went to Rome, started preaching Christ too, and he got busted. So he's in jail along with Paul. And even though he's in jail, we see that he is pastoring like Paul. Look at verse 12 of chapter 4. "Epaphras, who is one of your number, a bondslave of Jesus Christ, sends you his greetings, always laboring earnestly for you in his prayers, that you may stand perfect and fully assured in all the will of God." A couple of things, just, he calls him first one of your number. Doesn't elevate him. He's like, he's one of you. You guys know who he is. But he calls him a bondslave of Christ. Now, we've talked about this before. This is not a new term if you've been around the pursuit. Certainly not if you're familiar with the New Testament. But it's somebody who says, I am willingly submit myself to Christ. I'm going to follow him. I love that Paul, and I don't think Paul's saying that he think, he professes to be a bondslave of Christ. As sometimes, like James, the book of James starts off, James, a bondservant. He calls us, hey, just so you all know. But how cool is it that Paul, who's observing this pastor, says of this leader, this guy is a bondslave of Christ. Like, I can see that in him. This is not somebody who's doing this for himself. He's not in this for his own gain. He's in this to promote Christ, to answer the call that God has in his life. And I just want to say, as we start, if you're somebody who wants to be a Christian leader, who wants to be a leader in the church, submit yourself completely to Christ. I mean, that honestly, and I said a couple weeks ago, would you want to be known as a faithful servant? Was that too low? Guys, this is the highest title that you should seek. This is the only name recognition that you should want is, hey, I am a servant of Christ. That's it. I'm not seeking any other glory for myself. I don't want to be known as anything else. I'm not better than you. I'm not bigger than you. I'm just a fellow servant of Christ. We've all seen people use positions in leadership, and unfortunately, even in the church, people using positions of leadership for their own gain, to promote their own name. Jesus addressed that. Check out this statement in Matthew 23. Jesus, speaking of some religious leaders, said, they love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces and being called rabbi by men. But do not be called rabbi, for one is your teacher, and you are all brothers. So look, if you're going into leadership, if you feel called to leadership for your own sake, for your own name, for the recognition, because you like, being in charge of stuff, or you like having people look up to you, don't do it. Don't do it. That's not the right reason. If you're somebody who wants to be a leader, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's not for your gain. It's not for your name. It's not so people would think much of you. No, you come at it as a bondservant of Christ. Peter writes in 1 Peter 5:2 and 5, speaking to the elders, shepherd the flock of God among you, exercising oversight not under compulsion, but voluntarily according to the will of God, and not for sordid gain, but with eagerness, nor yet as lording it over those allotted to your charge, but proving to be examples to the flock. It's like you don't do what you do for you. You don't do what you do for your sake, for your gain, financial or otherwise. You do it as an example. You do it as service. Leadership is service. Leadership is sacrifice. Christ, who is our leader, gave his life for us. Gave his life for those who would follow him. Christ calls us, Paul relays it, those of you who are husbands, says, love your wives. Husbands, according to Scripture, should be the leader in the home. He tells us what that leadership should look like. Love your wife just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. See, if you want to be a husband someday because you want to be in charge, you got it backwards. You got it backwards. You seek leadership so that you could serve, so that you could lay yourself down for those that you lead. Leadership is not to be served, but to serve if we're following Christ. That is the example that we saw in him. Not for personal gain, but for the gain of those we are leading. I tell you, we talk about stewardship at The Pursuit, that we manage your money, the money that you guys give. We take that very seriously, and I hesitated, actually added this part of the message this morning, because I feel like you need to know something about how we treat the money that you guys give. One of the things that is so important to me as a leader and for the staff is that we get to participate in some of the conferences that are around the country. We don't usually send a large group if it's too far away, but there's a Catalyst conference in Atlanta in October that we go to, a few of us go to every year. We go to actually April, they did a Catalyst West, and the whole staff drove down and went to that conference. You need to know, we spend some of your money that way. We do. We feel like it is valuable for us to be there. And in order for us to lead you effectively, we need to go to some of these things and be filled up and be encouraged and get a step back and get fresh ideas from other leaders. But here's the thing, and this so frustrates me. But when we go to conferences like that, guess which hotels fill up first? When these are church leaders, pastors from all over the country, guess which ones fill up first? The Marriotts, the Ritz. The expensive, posh hotels. They just do. I can tell you, we use like Hotwire. Okay, honestly, we do. We go and we say, what is the cheapest place that's just on this side of disgusting that that we could stay at? And honestly, sometimes we've crossed the line a little too far. But it's like, this isn't for us. We're not at this conference on the church's dime on what you guys give for us to live it up. But if we want to stay in a nice hotel, that's fine. But we do it on our vacation with our money, not with the church's money. I want you to know that. I want you to know that. When we go out to eat, and you go there, you can't really prepare meals, so you go out to eat. And, I'll just tell you, we don't ever go to a place where you have to tip. If it's that nice that it's a sit-down we will do that on our own dime. If we do go there, we pay the extra. Because we know that you guys don't sacrifice for us to enjoy really good meals while we're on vacation. That's why we get a paycheck. That's why we get our salary for us. If we choose to spend our money that way, then we can do that on our own time. We drink waters. We talk about it rounding down, but the staff knows, and we say when we go on these things, hey, you drink water. If you get a soda, you're paying for it. You're paying for it out of your own money. You'll give it at the end. And here's the thing, and it was given to me by my mentor. He just said, hey, when you go out, when you're on the church's dime, you just remember that some single mom with trembling scraped together $20 to put $20 in the offering. You spend every dime like it is that money that you are spending. The people should have that kind of confidence in you that you are not wasting their money on your lifestyle. And guys, I wish I could tell you that that's what we see out there, but it isn't. It isn't. It isn't what is normal. It's just, we don't want to be normal. We want to guard every penny. This is not for our gain. Actually, Josh, I'll tell you, we average less than $6 per person per meal when we go out on these trips. And I was talking to Josh. We were sitting there. We were just talking about it, because like there are other people from churches that are obviously ordering a lot more extravagantly than we are. And I just said, does it ever get old? Does it ever get old? Do you ever have the thought like, man, I wish we could. And he's like, because for me, it's like, that's just me. That's just what I do. And it's fine for me. I started the pursuit, and he just said, no, it is a privilege to be here. It is a privilege to be here. We're not going to waste people's money. We're not going to waste people's money on us. We do what we feel like we need to do. And when we ask you guys to sacrifice for the sake of the ministry, it really is for the sake of the ministry. You guys know our salaries are public information. I think it is safe to say that if you look at our salaries, that you could say nobody is making an exorbitant salary. Nobody's padding their stuff. Nobody's taking more than we should. Honestly, we have a right to take more. You go, what's normal? We just aren't going to do that. There's nothing wrong with making a good salary. But you know what? When it comes to the choice between making a salary that would just increase our lifestyle or allowing the money that you guys sacrifice to go toward other ministry, we choose to limit what we take. We just do. I'll tell you the only drawback, okay? The only drawback to that is when we have a dip in giving, okay, and giving is low, we don't have a lot of stuff that we can cut. We can't, there are churches that, pastors making 6 figures and they take a 10% pay cut. Oh, pity, wow, things must be really tough. No, that's fine if that's what God's calling. But we can't all do that. We can't trim the fat because there is no fat. There just isn't. We are careful. I would want you guys to know. I want you guys to know that when you trust us with the money that you put in there and say, guys, we're trusting that this is going to be used for God's kingdom, I want you to know that's what we use it for. That's what we use it for. We take what we need. We take what we need and nothing more than that. And it allows us to do more for the kingdom. I'll just tell you, if you want to someday work on staff, you say, I want to be a leader, I want to work at the Pursuit. You know what? Our commitment is to try to take care of your family. You ain't going to get rich. If you think this is going to be lucrative working at a big church, oh man, as we grow, no, it's not going to change. My hope is my salary goes down in the future as we grow. That is my goal. That is my goal. This is not for my gain, and our staff understands that. And those of you who want to be a leader, and I hope that it is not for your gain. It is not for your gain. Epaphras, when you look at his heart, he's in prison, okay, for preaching about Jesus. And what's he doing in prison? Praying for the people he leads. Not for himself, not laboring earnestly that he would get out of prison. He's laboring earnestly, praying for his people. I cannot stress enough to you. You want to be a leader? You better pray. You better be in the habit of praying for the people that you lead. Last week we showed a sermon on video, and during the time that you guys were watching and listening, I was in the back praying for you. And I actually had the thought, I wonder if God's going to use me more today through my prayers than he ever has while I'm preaching. Guys, we just don't understand how important prayer is to leadership. Many of you know, we say it from time to time. We ask you to fill out a card. If you come into the Pursuit, we want to know your name. We want to pray for you by name. I had this idea back when we were in our house. We first started, first Sunday, everybody was on that Excel spreadsheet, and I wanted to pray for everybody who comes to the Pursuit by name every week. That was a commitment. I wanted that. And as it grew and grew and grew, finally, like last year, the elders were like, look, Paul, we love you. You got to let us pray. And being convicted that it is team-led here by the elders, I gave up the right to pray for every single person. Now it is shared with the team of elders. But I want you to know, if you come to the Pursuit and we know it, okay, you put it on your card, you give us your name, an elder at the Pursuit prays for you every single week. You are prayed for by name every single week. That has been true from the beginning. Guys, there may be other churches that's true of. I don't know of one. I don't know of a church that's over 1,000 people where every single person is prayed for by the elders, those who are called to lead it every single week. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it. Who knows how much less God might have done if we hadn't prayed? Honestly, we do not know the degree to which he has used that. Some of the things that God has done in your life may be just because one of us prayed for you. Just because one of us prayed for you. We encourage you to get in a life group so that you can pray for each other, because we don't know your particular life situation. Some of you, we just know your name. God knows your situation, but we just know your name. But we encourage you to get in a life group so you could pray for each other. Pray for each other. I preached on Time to Pray a few months ago, and everybody was all fired up. But if you're like me, and I hate to admit this, but as I get further and further from that talk, it just kind of starts slipping back into old lackadaisical habits. if that's you, if you're with me in that, man, get the sermons, get the podcast, redo it, and let's get refocused and stay focused on praying for people. If you're a leader, if you want to be a leader, you got to get in the habit of praying for the people that you lead. Pray for the people you lead. Epaphras, it says, was always laboring earnestly. That word's the same word that Paul uses in other places to describe somebody who's competing in an athletic games. That's how hard he's praying. As hard as somebody who's running a race is trying to win. That's the way that he was praying. He's passionately and persistently praying for the people that he led. You want to be a godly leader, you got to pray for the people you lead. You got to pray for them. We pray as a staff every day at 12:30. We stop whatever we're doing. Anybody who's in the building, 12:30 to 1 o'clock, we just pray. And this past week, as I prepared for this week, I just challenged them, saying, you know what, I'd like to see us labor a little bit more earnestly for the people that we lead. I'd like to see us use more of this time praying for people. We can join with you as you pray for them, but people that you know in your ministry that need prayer, that are going through struggles, that you would pray for them. And I just said, I want to get better at that. I want to get better at that for you. I really do. I want to be better at that. I want to labor harder for you guys in prayer. Talk about anybody in leadership. If you're leading a team here, whether it's a hospitality team or you're teaching, in the kids ministry, but if there's a group of people that look to you to lead them, you ought to be praying for them. You ought to be praying for them by name. You ought to know their situation, be able to pray for them. I really believe our long-term effectiveness as a leader is as much dependent on our prayer life for those we lead as it is on anything else. If you want to be a leader, pray. Pray for the people you lead. Epaphras, Paul says in verse 13, "For I testify for him that he has a deep concern for you and for those who are in Laodicea and Hierapolis." So he wasn't praying just as an exercise. He says he has a deep concern. That word is pain. It's translated pain, other times in the New Testament that it's there. He hurts for you. He knows what you're going through. He allows himself to feel that pain and pray for you. And that's why he prays. And I've heard people do this, and this is certainly a temptation. You just kind of got to distance yourself emotionally from the problems of other people, because it would just be overbearing. It would just be too burdensome for you to actually think about and really feel what people are going through. Don't you dare. Don't you dare separate yourself from the people you lead and say, well, that's their concern, not mine. No, you stay in it, and it's uncomfortable, and it's painful, and there are times that it's overwhelming. But godly leadership is not this professional position where you keep yourself separated, from the people that you're leading. No, it is laying your life down. It is sacrificing for them. Christ laid himself down for us. He laid himself down for us. He knows us. He laid himself down for us. That is what we're called to do. It's how Paul was leading the church. I want to share in 1 Thessalonians 5 a passage that I memorized back when I was down in California. And I remember just saying, God, make this true of me. And it is, like I said, a little intimidating to read it to you all, because now you know what I feel like I'm supposed to be, where I feel like I should be as a leader, what God's calling me to. And there's some accountability here to say, you guys can decide for yourselves if you feel like I'm on this way or not, if I'm on track for this. It says, "For we never came with flattering speech, as you know, nor with a pretext for greed, God is witness, nor did we seek glory from men, either from you or from others. Even though as apostles of Christ we might have asserted our authority." He says, I could have been like, look, I'm the pastor. Do what I say. I'm an apostle. Do what I say. Look, you guys need to follow. He didn't. He didn't demand anything. But we proved to be gentle among you as a nursing mother tenderly cares for her own children. Having so fond an affection for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you had become very dear to us. Remember just letting that sink in and saying, God, I want to pastor like that. That is what I want to be. I want to lay myself down for the people that you entrust me to lead. I want to care for them. I want to love them. I want my heart to hurt when they hurt. I want to rejoice with them when they rejoice. Like I said, I'm not there. I'm not complete. I'm not perfect. But you could ask the staff. Does Paul lead like that? Ask those close to me. Is this the type of leadership you see in Paul? Because if this is what I say God's calling me to, and He has called me to it, and I'm not striving for that, then you shouldn't follow me. You shouldn't follow me. Epaphras learned how to pastor from Paul, labored for their sake, and I just want just a minute to just talk about what he prayed for them. Let's go back to verse 12. He says that his prayer was that they may stand perfect and fully assured in all the will of God. He wants them to be like Christ. That's what he's praying for. God, whatever it takes to help them be what you have called them to be. The word perfect means mature. It is that we would grow to become like Christ. Fully assured has the idea of being persuaded or satisfied fully, because again, this is in response to those who are trying to lead them away. He says, I want, God, help the body to be confident in who you are. They would understand who you are. That they would be able to see when it's false, just reject it. They would stand true. Guys, that is what God calls. If you want to be a leader in Christian ministry, understand the reason God calls you there is to help the people that you lead become more like Jesus. That's it. It is not about you. This is not about me. God has put me in this spot for your sake. That I would lay myself down and do whatever it takes to help you become more and more like Christ. And he labored in prayer. Again, where did he get that heart? Look back on flip back a page. The end of verse Colossians 1. Paul says of himself, describing his ministry, we proclaim him. This is chapter 1, verse 28. Colossians, we proclaim him, admonishing every man and teaching every man with all wisdom, so that we may present every man complete in Christ. Look, that's why we do what we do. And this is the how he does it. Verse 29, for this purpose also I labor, striving according to his power, which mightily works within me. It's not like, oh, this is a deal. So, we work at it. We put a little bit of effort into it. No. He pours himself out to help people grow in their faith. And Paul was clearly a hard worker. I believe Epaphras, if he labored in prayer, he probably labored in his other work, right? You have every right to expect your leaders, you expect me to work hard. You have every right to expect that. There's no place for a lazy, half-hearted work ethic in the church. No place for it. We need rest, okay? We need vacation time. We need all that type of stuff. But when we're working, you should expect us to work. And if you want to be a leader, if you want to work at the pursuit, you better work hard. You better be in the habit of working hard, because that is the only acceptable way for a Christian to lead. That's why we call even those of you who are volunteers to excellence. Because God deserves that. The people we're trying to reach deserve that. They deserve us working hard to create the space that we create for them. And I stand before you as somebody who's on staff and somebody who gets their paycheck from your gifts. You have every right to expect me to pray for you. You have every right to that. You have every right to expect that I work hard at what I do, that I try to grow in my ability to preach, that I try to grow in my ability to lead. I've said it before, but we have an amazing staff here. I believe as I read these things that we are on the right track, that we're on the right track, that God is working this in us. The people who lead you are amazing. They really are. The volunteers, our volunteer leaders, I say it all the time, God should apologize to the other churches in the valley because he keeps giving us all the best people. God just keeps giving us great, great people who are committed to coming alongside of us and doing whatever it takes to help you have a place where you can grow, a place where you can invite your friends to come and maybe get a glimpse of who God is. But here's the thing. Some of you don't want to lead. That's cool. I'm not going to try to convince you of that. But if God created the church, called some as pastors, assembled us, and let's get it out of the general for a second and say, let's talk about the pursuit. If God's called me here, called my family here to Idaho, and put this type of leadership in my heart and made this our desire, and puts a staff around me who are committed to leading in this way, and has volunteer leaders come alongside them who are committed to leading this way, and puts all of this together, and then you show up, and this is your church, could you work with us? Could you trust us? I mean, I know it's hard. Because you think there's got to be a catch. You know, just one, we're going to read scandal. It's coming. You know, there's got to be something. I understand that. Well, there's got to be money going off the top. Paul's getting money. No, you can look. Look at my tax returns. I don't care. Everything's open. There's got to be. Look. Can you trust us? Here's the thing. I'll tell you. We try not to ever waste a Sunday. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't think there's ever been a time when you've come to the pursuit where you're like, that was a waste. They obviously didn't put anything into that. You know, so was it one of those off weeks where Paul just kind of got up and winged it, and the band didn't know what they were doing, and, you know, kids ministry was disorganized, and they were unprepared, and, you know. We don't waste a Sunday. You know what we do every single week? We try to make Sundays something that could change your life. That could confront issues that need to be confronted, that could lift you up and inspire you to walk with Christ that next week. Could you work with us and come? I mean, come like regularly, consistently. I know there's vacations. I understand that. That's cool. Everybody, you got to take breaks. You got to take rest. I'm all for that. But when you're here, could you be here? When you're gone for the weekend, it's Boise, you got to drive to McCall and go camping for the weekend. I understand, Could you come back for the PM service? That's why we put it there. That's why we put it Sunday night instead of Saturday night, to give you a chance to still be a part of what God's doing when you're here. Could you, if you're a follower of Christ, could you trust us enough? I mean, trust your leadership here to say, you know what? I don't feel like going today. But I'm sure that Paul's put his time in. I'm sure the band's prepared. I'm sure the staff is ready, and they've put something together they believe God wants me to hear. I'm going to go. I'm going to trust them. I'm going to go. I'm going to trust them with an hour and 15 minutes of my day. Normal church, 3 out of 5 Sundays, that's normal. Come 3 out of 5, barely more than half the time that most Christians, dedicated Christians in America, go to church 3 out of 5 Sundays. And every single Sunday here, especially, during the summer, it's normal. Probably a third of the people who come to the Pursuit aren't here today. Wonder where they're going to sit when they all come back. I don't know either. But could you come? Could you say, you know what, I'm going to trust you enough to come? We have things like life groups that we say, man, as our church grows, people are going to feel disconnected. They're not going to be loved in the way that Christ calls us to love each other. So let's create life groups and let's train leaders and let's make sure that we have them in every area. And then we stand up here and say, man, we really believe you guys if you're a follower of Christ, you need to be in a life group. You need to be in community. Could you trust us enough to get in a life group? So you know what? If you guys know I'm busy, but if you guys think that this is important for me and God's put you in this spot, I'll trust you. I'll trust you and I'll get in a life group. We have core classes that are tied to 2 of our core values, the Good Sense Budget course and Becoming a Contagious Christian. Okay, we offer them from time to time, and here's the thing. Here's what we think. We as the people that at this today, before today maybe, but you have decided to follow. You need to, if you're a follower of Christ, you need to take those 2 classes. Good Sense, because, man, we stink at managing our money, right? We just do as a culture, and we all need to know what it means to follow Christ financially. And so we stand up and say, man, here's this class that's coming up. We really believe that all of you should go through it. And somebody's just like, no. If we're going to take a Saturday out of our life, and we're going to order food and arrange childcare and get the books and get the teachers in place, could you trust us that it's important? That if we think it's important, then maybe it is the Contagious Christian course. Guys, this is the reason we've said this. The reason that the Pursuit is increasing in number the way that it is because of people just like you who have gone through and taken that class and realized that God has a heart for your neighbor and then get equipped to reach them and invest in them and invite them. And here's the thing. We can't get 10 people to go to one of these to Contagious Christian. The last couple times it's been scheduled, we have not had even 10 people. We had 10 people go to Contagious Christian when there were only 10 adults in our house at the church. Okay? Why? They trusted us then. They trusted us then. They say, well, if you think this is important, then we'll do it. Could you do that? Could you trust us? God First Friday. We really believe that if we're going to see God do what He desires to do in this valley, it's going to be because we pray. And one of the things that we've done is the first Friday of every month, we set it up for us and we create something for you guys to pray through, to come and spend half an hour, 45 minutes with God. We get life groups to come and do childcare and design the thing and remove chairs so there's room for you to kneel if you prefer to kneel. Could you come? We're giving up our Friday night to be here because we think it's important. If your leaders are doing that, could you trust us to say, you know what? Maybe I could do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm not feeling it. That's that important. But since you're our leaders and you say it's important, we'll trust you. Could you work with us? Could you trust us and get behind the leadership that you have here? Now, some of you are not yet Christians in here, and I just want you to understand something about following a leader. I know that there's all kinds of reservations and things when you decide to follow somebody, and it's scary certainly for anybody to decide, well, I'm going to follow a pastor or a staff or a leader, and And I totally understand why there's a little bit of hesitancy on your part to follow somebody who maybe in your mind was a guy who lived 2,000 years ago and died, and there are people who follow him still. But here's the thing. If he's trustworthy, then you could follow him. And that's why we say, man, we just want to help you answer those questions and figure out who Jesus is. Because if he's trustworthy, you could follow him. And it's one of those things where you decide ahead of time, like, I'm going to follow you, because there will come a time where he asks you to do something that you're not quite sure that it's of value, not quite sure that it's the best thing for you. But you could look at him and say, no, because he is trustworthy, I will do it. And that is what Christ invites you to allow him to lead your life. And we believe, so many of us believe, that he's worth following. We've already decided, God, whatever you call us to do, we're going to do it. We're going to trust your leadership over our own. Now, if you're a Christian and you aspire to be a leader, I hope you've been challenged. If you're somebody who says, why would anybody want to lead? I understand that. You look at that and go, I mean, what's the benefit? You know what? I really believe that when you lead people in a godly way, and I could say this from experience, there's just nothing better. There's just nothing better than seeing God use you to impact people's lives. And I get to hear stories from time to time about God using me, and there's just nothing better than that. I said last week in kind of a frustration thing that I can't change people's hearts. That's something that I don't get to do, and it's frustrating. But I'll tell you what makes it all okay. That God can, and he does. And if God can use my part, like God can use your part, in leading and the sacrifice and service that you make to create an environment or have a conversation or through your teaching or whatever can change people's lives, man, there's just nothing better. I just want to leave you with a verse that's probably my favorite verse about leadership, and it's not on leadership. 2 Chronicles 16:9 says, "For the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, that he may strongly support those whose heart is completely his." That's spoken to a leader who had actually chosen poorly. So this is what God would have done. This is what he would have done. And the fact that I'm called to lead this church, and God, if my heart is completely his, looks and says, I want to come alongside you, Paul. And if you're called to lead in any environment, and you as a godly leader say, God, you have my heart. I want to do this your way. I want to do this for you. God in heaven says, I believe in you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to come alongside you. What an amazing thing. God's called you to lead. Do it. Do it. Get this stuff. Figure this stuff out. We'll help you. If God's called you to follow, then follow. Find, and if you can't get behind us, I understand. If there's something there and you go, I don't trust Paul, that's fine. Find somebody you can trust. And get behind him. Get behind him. The band's going to come up and give us a chance to sing in honor of our leader. You can take communion, those of you who are followers of Christ. It's available at the front or at the back. His sacrifice that he made that has given us life. And after we sing, the ushers are going to come and pass the baskets. If you're our guest, please don't feel any obligation to put anything about that card in there. We would love to get your name so we could be praying for you. If you're somebody who believes in what we're doing and you say, Paul, we're going to trust you. We're going to give here and trust you guys to do what you see fit for the kingdom. And we invite you to give generously. Let's stand and sing.